Okay, so I am going to be real with you guys, alright? So the strategy that you're gonna see, right, is the first ever strategy that was like a, what do you call that? Was like a fire starter for me to create my Mario model, alright? So from this strategy is where I moved on to Mario model and I'm sticking to Mario model. But this is the first strategy that I was using to pass prop firms. So I'm gonna give this to you guys for free, but there are some disclaimers before you start using this strategy. All right, what are the disclaimer number one? Oops. Right, disclaimer number one, this is not a everyday strategy. Right, what do I mean by that? Right, is that this does not form every day. Right, this definitely does not form every day. Right, next, you have to backtest this, especially on the pairs that you trade, because this strategy was made for goal, right? It was specifically made for goal, right? NQ, yeah, I've used it, but as I said, it doesn't form every day, so it's a bit more risky, right? And you have to be super chill with the strat. You can't force any trade, but I will show you a work around it to get trades almost every day. But just remember, the returns won't be as strong as the ones that I've shown on my Discord, which is a 71% win rate. And let me check that out again. Right, this is the win rate for February, and this is what we're gonna go through. You can, as you can see, like literally, right? We don't have much trade. This trade was not based off these strategies because I did something wrong with it, alright? But so I'm not gonna go through this, but I'm gonna go through with you from this. So just remember that starting of the month we were down 300, right? But we'll go through all these other trades. But as you can see, right, one whole week we didn't have a setup. So there are times where I believe it was this month when I was just looking back and trying to see what strategy is doing and all that. I literally did not have anything until the start of, no, it's me, right? Start of April, right? I only had a few setups at the start of April. Other than that, I didn't have anything up till today. And as you know, prop firms, right? You can't be idle for more than 30 days. So that is why I'll teach you two ways to enter the trades and all that. But I'll teach you the correct way first. All right. And as you can see, if you use the correct way, this is the win rate. All right. But remember, if you're going to use it the aggressive way, then the win rate obviously is going to go down. But it's not like you don't get a setup. All right. Just remember, every strategy works, but as much as it works, it always has its cons too. Right. So the pro of this is when you use it right, you'll definitely make up for your losses. But when you use the aggressive entry, the cons is your win rate will go down and you might see like losing streak, but end of the day you will still be winning because the base of this thread, right? You always check 1:3, and you always break even 1:1. All right, that's about it. That's the only thing that you have to remember with this trade and strategy. All right, so let's go straight into the strategy. All right, so what am I supposed to tell you first? All right, cool. So first thing you want to know, like any op strategy, right? We're gonna aim for the market open, which is what? UTC -4, New York time, 9:30 to 9:45. Right? Go to the 15 minute mark. Oops. Maybe let me just draw this. Mark the high and mark the low. All right. Let's say there's a candle here, and then you mark the high and the low. Next thing you got to know, right, is the price is definitely going to range and do its own thing and all that. And at one point of time, it's going to break. So let's take this example, right? Let's say it. Let me draw this again because I can't move the screen. Cool, right? So let's say it breaks, right, to the top side. When I say break, I don't want to see a candle wick, right? I want to see a body closure above, right? And when I say break, it has to happen on the 1 minute. All right, remember that it has to break on the 1 minute. So once you draw your 15-minute high and low from 9:30 to 9:45, go to your 1 minute, see a 1 minute candle break above. All right, so once it breaks above, you're gonna take your Fibonacci tool, all right, mark from the low to the high. All right, this is very important. Remember this, right? If it breaks the top, mark from the low to the high, right? Same thing if it breaks, let's say it breaks the low, right? Say it's like that, and then it breaks the low, mark from the top to the bottom. All right, simple as that. Remember this. Cool. So now let's go back to the example of breaking above, right? Okay, so now it has a break above, right? Next thing is you gotta draw your fib from low to high. All right, this is the settings for the fib. All right, you don't actually need all this. Wait, let me just untick this. Yeah, so this is the settings. Take a screenshot and mark this out. All right, so once you're done, just remember, extend the lines to the right. But if you think it's too messy, you don't have to extend. You can just drop your fib, right, and then draw a box if you like, right? Okay, so the main levels that we need is these three levels: 0.5, 0.705, and 0.79. All right, so these three lines are going to be where we want the price to come into. All right, the reason why 0.79 is red is because if a candle after doing this break, where's my drawing tool? Right, after it does this, oops, let me change this to a darker blue. Cool. So let's say it comes back down, right? Comes back down, blah blah blah, and then it comes here till, let's say, even here, right? Up till this point, it's still fine, right? Let's say it touches here, we are still fine, right? The next thing we gotta do, if we are on gold, you gotta find the correlating pair, which is silver, right? You're gonna see two things. Number one, you want to see a SMT, right? If you don't know what's an SMT, it's basically, for example, gold is doing this, right? And then silver is doing this, right? So which means to say gold is not breaking the highs, but silver is breaking the high, right? This, usually when you find SMT above, it's for taking sell trades. Now, how do you do that for the lower trades, right? So let's say this gold is taking out lows, but silver is not taking out the low, right? So as you can see, this took out the low, but this is not taking out the low. So that is a bullish SMT. So remember, when you're finding for SMTs for buys, it should be the lows that you're looking at, right? It should be the lows that you're looking at. But when you're looking for sells, it should be the highs that you're looking at. All right, that's about it. If you still don't understand, just hit me up on the Discord. I will go through it with you. All right, so we're gonna look first thing, SMT. So let's say we have an SMT with silver over here. All right, I'm gonna make this black. All right, let's just say we have a SMT over here. All right, now there's two ways that you can enter the trade. Number one, if you see an inverse fair value gap. All right. So when you see the inverse fair value gap, you can already just, when it closes, you can enter, right? And then take the trade. Cool. Cool. But the proper way of entry would be a CISD. So what's a CISD? I'll show it to you guys later. It's basically the last up candle before the down move, right? So let's say you got a CISD here, but your stop loss isn't too big, right? Let's just say it is not too big, right? Then always go for the CISD. But if you look at this, it's 44, right? It's more than 10. This is on futures, by the way. So if it's too much, right, go for an inverse fair value gap. But if it's too small, where the CISD point is, then just go for the CISD. All right. The downwards, it's going to be the same thing. I know this video is going to be quite long, but just stay tuned because I'm trying to teach you guys this. All right. So for the downwards, it is going to be the same thing, right? We need a 1 minute break below, right? But in this case, as I said, it's from the top to the bottom where you draw the fib, right? And then we're going to wait for the price to go back up. All right. Do a what? SMT. Right, we're gonna get a SMT, and once we get an SMT, number one, we always go for a CISD entry, right? But let's say the CISD entry is too far away, right? Then we can take a inversion fair value gap entry, AMA 1:3, right? Cool, that's about it. The last thing that you gotta know, right? This red line. The moment a candle, right? The moment a candle actually closes above this red line, right, that invalidates the whole setup. There's no way you're gonna trade for the day. You just off your laptop and come back tomorrow. That's about it. All right, that is about it. All right, I'm trying to make this video as short as 30 minutes at least, because I want to give you guys as much of things that I can give in this video. All right, so I hope you understand that. As long as a candle closes, if it wicks, it's still fine, but if it closes above the 0.79, you're not taking any trade. All right, let's go into the live example for the 6th of Feb. Is this 6? Oh yeah, this 6. All right, so as I said, right, we mark the high and the low of the 15-minute candle, which is 9:30 to 9:45, right? Next, after we marked it, go to 1 minute, and we're gonna see a break, right? We just wait for a break. This is not a break, this is just a wick, right? This is definitely this is a break. Cool, we got a break. Remember, we don't mark it from the low to the highest point of what just happened. We mark it of the 15-minute because we just want to see the direction it's breaking, right? So next, we want to see it come here but not close below this red line, right? So what we can do, if let's say this is going to confuse you, right, you can actually mark according to the line. Let's say this, right, this is, I'm going to mark it red, and then this I'm going to mark it as blue, right, so that I don't confuse myself. Cool. So I'm deleting the fib, and we're just going to use these boxes. All right, if you want to just use the fib, you can use the fib. So right now we're just going to wait for price to come back down and tap into our zone. All right, so we're waiting, and we had a tap. All right, we had a tap at 11:26. This is in UTC4 again, just remember that. All right, so the last thing you need to know about this strategy, right, is we stop finding for setups at 11:30, right? But if a setup is already formed at before 11:30, then we can still take the trade. All right, so this is a setup that was already formed before 11:30. All right, let me show you. We go to the silver futures. On the right it's silver, on the left it's gold. All right, now we're gonna find for SMTs. So let's see. Remember what I said, if you're buying, we're gonna find the low for the SMT, right? So as you can see here, this low, right, was not broken, whereas on the silver it was already swept, right? So this is a SMT for us, right? So let me minimize this. Now we're gonna find for entry, right? So this is our CISD. Cool, cool. So this is 13, it's still cool. I'm still okay with taking the trade, right? At this point, it hasn't broken, right? So CISD, as I said, basically it's the last up move before the down candle, right? The down candle that did the sweep and tap and all that, yeah. So from here, we're gonna wait, right? We're gonna wait. Now this became super huge. It became 17. I'm not willing to take 17, right? So what you can do is you can wait for a re-entry of that CISD, right? And look at that, we had a re-entry and it blasted up, right? So at this point, we are aiming for a 1:3, right? So we're aiming for a 1:3. Cool. We're aiming for a 1:3. We would have break even at 1:1. So this is not yet. This is 1:1. Nah, it's not yet 1:1. We are still at the tip, right? Still at the tip, not yet. So at this point, we hit a 1:1. This candle. So we aim a 1:3 with a break even already set, right? So right now we're just waiting and waiting and waiting, and let me just speed it up a bit. We went super close to our break even. We didn't get break even, and we won 1:3, which made that 900 bucks. All right. So let's go to the next example. All right, here we are on the 9th of Feb. All right, same thing. Mark the high, mark the lows. Right. Next, drop to the 1 minute, and now we wait for a break. Cool, we have a break, right? So what do? From the low to the high, all right? I'm just gonna speed up the process a bit. I'm not gonna waste too much of your time. Now we wait for the tap to come into our play. We had a tap, right? Do we have an SMT? Right, now we gotta look for the SMT. So do we have an SMT? Yeah, we do, right? This low was swept on gold, but this low was not swept, right? If you can see that, cool. If you can't, you might have to work on the SMT part of it. Let me go back a little. So we had a CSD here, right? The last up move before the down move that made the sweep and SMT, right? We can enter off here. Sweep right below and super sweet. Stop loss 4.4. Aim a 1:3. And bam, right? This point would have been 1:1. Was it 1:1 though? Yeah, this would have been a 1:1. You would have gotten break even, but I believe on this day I did not set break even. Yeah, I might have been looking at this kind of, I really can't remember, but I might have been looking at the reaction and might not have set break even. Yeah, I really have no idea why I never set break even, but it was a winning trade, right? We made another 900 bucks. Now, next, we're gonna go and look at the losing trade on the 11, right? We had a losing trade. Let me see this. I believe this was it, right? The high and the low. This could have been the broken part. Yeah, so from low to the high, right? And then it's empty and we broke. Yeah, that's the one. Cool. So let's look at SMTs, right? So we had an SMT with, what did I have SMT with? This. All right, cool. If you look at gold, from this point to this point, we had a sweep. But on silver, from this point to this point, we did not have a sweep, right? So this was a super nice trade actually, because it was just like 10 pips, right? Yeah. And then we are aiming for that, but eventually we broke below and we closed below. So this was an invalidated trade and we are done for the day because only one trade per day, right? one setup per day. All right, so let's go to the next trade. I believe this was it 13. Was it 13? I think it's 13. Right, this was the day. Cool. So mark the high. I believe this was a new candle. Mark the high, mark the low, wait for the break. Same thing again. Right, cool. We had a break above. Right, it's not yet 11:30. Mark the low to the high. If sometimes you feel like you might mark it wrongly, right? You can just use that 15-minute candle, or you can just go to the 15-minute, right, and just mark from low to the high. That's the like best way that you can mark it. All right, but either way, same thing. Wait for the tap. It tapped all the way to the red line. It didn't close below the red line, right? Do we have an SMT? For sure, we had an SMT, right? If you look at silver, from this low to this low wasn't swept, and then if you look at gold, this low to this low was definitely swept, right? And then when you enter the trade, you set your break. Sorry, this was the CISD, right? This is the last up candle before the down candle, right? We had a break here, stops below there. 1:3, and bam, this is totally the trade that we will take, and so on and so forth. So you guys get the idea of how to take this trade. So I'm not going to drag this video, so let's go to my trading view charts and I'll show you something else. All right, now remember when I said, right, this doesn't give us every single day. Some months it gives us back to back, some months it doesn't even do nothing, right? So for example, right, for the whole month of April, as I said, I only had like break-even trades towards the end, but towards the start, right, I don't think I can go back that much. All right, my bad. Oh yeah, cool, I can, but I can't drop to the 1 minute. Okay, but it's okay. Most of the trades that I want to show you guys, right, is at the far left. But yeah, we didn't get anything much unless only the start of April. But I'm going to show you guys the next way, or like what do you call that, another way to enter the trade. But this is more aggressive, and remember your price range or your validity of the trade, right, or the winning rate or whatever you're going to call it, it's going to drop drastically. All right, cool. So as you can see, this is the same thing that we do every single day, right? I'm just gonna go back a little. Okay, cool. I don't think I can show you the FX replay. The replay of the tool, because if I'm gonna open up silver chart, it's gonna go because it's super far back. All right, so just bear with me. All right. All right, so we mark the high and the low of the 15-minute candle. Cool. Step 2. What we're gonna do, right? We're gonna wait for a break. Now, once we get a break, remember this is an aggressive entry, alright? So once we get a break, same thing, right? Mark the high to the low because it break the lowest point, right? So 2 ways that you're gonna do this. Number 1 is you are definitely the correct way, right? You're gonna wait for it to come and tap here and then do the SMT, CISD, and so on and so forth, right? The other way is once it breaks, right? Once it breaks, look above it, the last swing high, right? And then once it breaks, it's definitely going to create the first swing low. Mark to the first swing low, right? Now I'm going to delete the previous fib, right? This is the aggressive way. You're going to see this. Hopefully I can show you guys on this. Oh, cool. I can show you guys. Nice. All right. You're going to see this, and then you're going to be like, okay, cool. So now on the right is silver, on the left is gold, right? What we're going to look for next? We're going to look for a SMT, right? As you can see here to here, we have a 2 candle SMT. Where on silver, it didn't go higher than the previous candle, right? Next, what do you also have? You're looking for sells, right? So you're going to look for the last up candle before the down candle. Sorry, the last down candle before the up candle, my bad. So this would have been your CISD point, because this is the last lowest point of the body before it broke, right? So this would have been your lowest point. This is where you would have entered right after the break. Remember, 1:1, you're gonna break even, and then you're gonna aim for a 1:3, right? That's about it, and let's see what happens. And bam, within 1-2 minutes, you hit 1:3. Cool. Now let's look at the next example. This is taking so long, man. Okay, cool. So now the next example was a little bit this was a proper example, right? So we had a break, right? Went down, tapped SMTs, went up, 1:1 break even, and we had a break even trade. Cool. Now let's look at the next example. Damn, this is gonna take super long. Let me go to 30 minutes. Nice. All right. So same thing, 15-minute high and low marked. Drop to the 1 minute. Let's look for a break, right? Okay, as you can see from here, right, we had a break. We had a break to the low part, right? Now we're waiting for a retest of that area. Cool. Now, what happened here, right? It closed above. So this is an invalidated trade. Although it's an invalidated trade, doesn't mean that you can't actually take the trade. But at the same time, it's gonna be super risky. So I would suggest never to take this kind of a trade. But as you can see what happened next, right? It went down again, it reacted, it gave an SMT, right? Okay, just remember we are at the red zone, right? It went up again, created a sweep, created an SMT, created a CISD, and if you were to enter aggressively from here, you would have still won, right? But I would suggest not to take this kind of trades, right? Let's look at next example. I want to show you guys if the aggressive entry would have been there. Let me take a look at this. So yeah, we got a 15 here. Let's look at the 1 minute. Do we have a break? We had a sweep, and then we had a break. Yeah, cool. Nice. We had a break, right? Let's see from the break, last high to the last low, right? As you can see, you created a low, right? And the next candle tapped into the gap, right? So the next candle tapped into the gap. Let me zoom in on the silver. Let's see if we have a SMT, right? Do we have an SMT? No, we don't, right? We don't have an SMT, right? Cool. So this would have been an invalidated trade. I mean, we still wouldn't get a setup here, right? So yeah, but if we had an SMT, that would have definitely been a 1:3, right? Just trying to find for you guys a aggressive entry setup. Let's see. Right, we got a break there. But I believe even if you were to put your aggressive entry, we would have been close below this. So this would have been invalidated. Let's see if we get to the downside. Okay, we got a downside, right? Remember, this only works for the aggressive entries, right? For the proper entries, the moment you break above, close below the 0.79, you're not going to take the opposite side trade. But for the aggressive entry, you can try to do that. All right. So let's see this. I just realized I didn't have an opportunity to show you guys the fair value gap one, but you guys get it, right? If it's too big for the CISD, then take the inverse fair value gap. Yeah, cool. We have an SMT there. Problem is, do we have a break before 11:30? I guess we don't. Oh wait, we do actually. Right, so we have an SMT here, right? This 2 candle SMT, and then on silver it's going to be this and this, which is going down, but this is going up, right? So what we'll be looking for, we are looking for a CISD, right? CISD, is it above 10? Nah, it's not, so it's still safe for us to take. This is our 1:1 mark. So I'm just gonna mark this here and wait for us to get at least a break even. Do we even have a break even though? Guess this would have been a losing trade either ways. I'm just gonna take a look at this. Honestly, I never looked at it back, but yeah. Yeah, so this was a losing trade. Cool. We're gonna look at the last trade before we end this video, alright? Let's look at that setup. To mark the high. Wait, what? How is this the high and the low? Cool. This is the high and low. Let's see what happened. Right, look at this. It broke below, went up. Definitely would have. Oh, sorry. Broke above first. Right, it broke above. Closed below the 0.79. We wouldn't have taken it. Aggressive entry would have done the same thing, would have closed below 0.79. This would have closed below the 0.79. Both will not have been a valid trade. Cool. Now let's look at this. Do we get a 0.79? Okay, cool. Let me go back to the 1 minute. Right, we broke. Let's look at aggressive entry. This was the last low to the last high. It's gonna get messy. Let me just go back a little. Actually, I don't even need to go back. As you can see, right, it closed below. Right, so let's wait for another break above. And then we go from the last low to the last high. Wait. This would have been the last low to last high. Let me clear it up for you guys. Right, so you see it went back down, it closed below, and then it closed back above. You can do that, but just remember all these are aggressive entries. Right, it's not saying that it's definitely gonna enter whatever. Right, it's just you're gonna find that, and then you're gonna find for SMTs. For example, like this. Right, you see this candle to this candle, it's going down, whereas this candle to this candle is going up. Right, now what you're waiting for, you're waiting for CISD to the top side, last up candle before the down move, the body. Right, now you got a break, you enter, stops below the swing, and aim for a 1:3. And bam, right? That's about it. Okay, so I hope you guys see that when you're using aggressive entry, yeah, you're gonna get more losses, but with 1:3 as your target profit, you're gonna cover back all the losses, right? So with that being said, I hope you guys learned something. If you guys need more information on this strategy, join my Discord, ask me on my lives. Ask me on my general chat. I don't think I'll go live anytime soon, but yeah. With that being said, peace out.